Thank you. So we just concluded an enlightening session on areas which are very critical for any country: education, healthcare, technology, and people-to-people connect. So with that, we come to the most interesting and exciting part of today's session, the valedictory session. It is on exploring soft power diplomacy. For the valedictory session, we have an illustrious speaker, Dr. Vinay Sahasrabudhe, who is President of Indian Council for Cultural Relations, ICCR. Dr. Sahasrabudhe is also Chairman of Parliamentary Standing Committee on Education, Women, Children and Youth and Sports. Dr. Sahasrabudhe will speak on the way forward exploring soft power diplomacy, and the objective of this session is to explore the future and underexplored potential of the region's transnational networks that strengthen soft power diplomacy in the Indo-Pacific region. Over to you, Dr. Sahasrabudhe.
Namaste and greetings to all the delegates who are attending this international conference on the subject, a roadmap for Indo-Pacific regional cooperation in a post-COVID-19 world order. I must congratulate the organizers for having taken up this issue for deliberations, and I am happy that many knowledgeable persons, authorities in their own disciplines, contributed in this particular discussion about the Indo-Pacific regional cooperation. As a student of international relations, I believe that when we talk about regional cooperation, the things that normally get focused are about trade, commerce, industry, and similar such things. But I believe regional cooperation, after all, is about people-to-people connectivity, and in that order about cultural cooperation as well. Because I believe that there are several issues ranging from terrorism to multiculturalization which are about culture. And these are becoming challenges in certain parts of the world, and therefore we just cannot undermine the importance of culture, the importance of soft power. To that end, it is really appropriate to end this conference with some reflections, some deliberations, some exchange of ideas and thoughts about how do we evolve a stronger cooperation between different countries on the basis of our culture, which is also called as soft power in different words. As a student of international relations, I believe there are at least 6 ingredients when it comes to regional cooperation in the context of culture. Firstly, for the Indo-Pacific region, I believe that it is required that we understand several cultures and subcultures that are there in this particular region. Every country has its own identity. Every country has its own history, its own cultural moorings. And before we recognize them and honor them, first of all, we need to understand them. And therefore, whether it is a small country like Papua New Guinea, or let's say a very small country like Fiji, all these countries and people over there are also entitled for equal amount of dignity, equal amount of security, and equal amount of opportunity as well. And therefore, this equality of dignity, security, and opportunity, I believe, will lead all of us towards greater democratization in the cultural context of this entire region. So this, I believe, is the first and foremost requirement. No matter how small a country is, no matter how less the population that stays in a particular geographical area, every other community, every other social group has its own identity, and we have to respect, we have to learn to respect all such smaller identities. This is the first point. Secondly, to ensure this, we have to create greater awareness. because we get to know about countries at the very initial stage through our textbooks. I would suggest that the Indo-Pacific region countries should have some common approach towards ensuring that the textbooks that are taught in all these countries carry adequate information about all the countries in this particular region. If we do that, the regional cooperation will get further strengthened. Because whatever we learn in our textbooks when we are in class 7 or class 8, that remains in our mind. It is kind of etched on our minds, on our thinking for years together. And therefore, we have to ensure that our textbooks give due importance to the Indo-Pacific region countries, which is perhaps the beginning of regional cooperation, and therefore greater awareness and special efforts to ensure that are required. It is also possible if countries in this particular region also come together and sign an agreement to ensure that in the national libraries of these countries we have adequate number of books giving information about culture and society of various countries in this particular region in adequate number. Like cultural exchange, I think this kind of knowledge exchange will also help us, because libraries are the temples of knowledge, and there we need to have many more books on countries that are the part of this Indo-Pacific region. My third point is respecting the uniqueness and the identity. I have already dwelt on that, but I would particularly suggest that when we talk about identity, there are various facets of identity. Our culinary and cuisine traditions, our dances, our music, our knowledge traditions, our traditional healing systems, everything. And therefore, all these things also require to be taken to the nooks and corners of this particular region. People be made aware so that we stand united as a regional power, which is again with the participation of the people, doesn't remain only at the government level. As it is, as I understand as a student of international relations, what is called as track 2 diplomacy in certain cases, in certain countries, is becoming the track 1 diplomacy. There, the popular interactions, the bondings between societies is perhaps stronger than the relationship between two governments. And therefore, I believe the culture of respecting the uniqueness of every other community and society in this particular region requires to be cultivated through special efforts. We have to go a long way in this regard and ensure that smaller countries are also given due respect as a country, as an independent nation. The fourth point is exploring the idea of greater knowledge exchange. For example, in the entire Indo-Pacific region, there are civilizational societies, civilizational countries, and the traditional moorings of these societies are extremely strong, extremely powerful, that provide them some kind of a unique identity. They have huge collections which are archival collections and important for the civilizational studies. There are huge number of monuments which date back to several centuries before. Now we require to take care of this treasure. This is the treasure of not just this region, but of the entire humanity. And therefore, whether temples like Angkor Wat or several such monuments in Cambodia, in Vietnam, in other parts of this particular region, I believe we need to have a common agenda to preserve these monuments, to ensure that this generation hands them over in a good shape to the next generation. It is the responsibility of the present generation to ensure this, and to that end also, as it is, I am happy to share with you that India has been extending every possible cooperation to smaller countries insofar as the upkeep and maintenance and conservance of the archival material or historic monuments is concerned. This requires to be taken to a different level. The fourth important point is about languages. Every other country has its own linguistic identity. For example, Myanmar, they speak Burmese, but I don't know in how many countries there are classes where Burmese is taught. There is Bhasa Indonesia. I don't know in how many universities there are departments of Bhasa Indonesia. I'm just giving a couple of examples, but there are a number of languages. In India itself, we have 32 official languages. So, this linguistic cooperation, if we try to underscore the importance of it, if we try to appreciate the key role that languages play in connecting people, I believe we can have greater integration, psychological, emotional integration in the Indo-Pacific region. And therefore, the countries that are a part of this region can think about greater linguistic cooperation, language exchange, knowledge exchange on the count of languages as well. The fifth point that I want to make over here is about development diplomacy. Diplomacy is not anymore only about arms control and peacekeeping and economic cooperation. Diplomacy is also about development. We are in an aspirational world today. Every other society has aspirations, and we need to weave these aspirations into a different kind of community of the Indo-Pacific region, which will help each other to strive hard and to get into the developed country bracket. We cannot afford, people say that the next century is going to be that of Asia, and many Asian countries are part of this Indo-Pacific region. And the entire region requires to agree on this point, that we will also work on development diplomacy. Bamboo, for example. In India, now there is a more conducive climate for bamboo-based entrepreneurship. Likewise, there are certain regional varieties, regional arts, regional resources which we can put to use and evolve some kind of a roadmap for development diplomacy, considering the requirements of every other country and also taking into consideration the potential of extending developmental assistance by a country to some other countries as well. If we do that, diplomacy will not remain confined only to a limited number of subjects, but it will also be a part of the aspirational world of tomorrow. I am happy that I am able to, at least virtually, join the valedictory session of this conference. I am sure at the end of the deliberations, whatever the thoughts that were exchanged, whatever the ideas that were presented, will ultimately lead us to a roadmap for a stronger Indo-Pacific regional cooperation. I wish the organizers a great success in their endeavor to have that kind of a roadmap emerged out of the deliberations. Thank you very much.